Hey everyone, it's Rebecca. Welcome back to my kitchen. Today I'm going to be making pizza. So we're planning on having a family pizza night tonight. We're going to do some pepperoni pizzas, and then we're also going to do a dessert pizza. And so I want to show you how I'm going to do that. I have been making this pizza dough recipe for a couple years now, and I absolutely love it. It's so easy to put together. It doesn't require any kneading, and you can actually make it ahead of time and put it in your refrigerator, and then you can pull it out when you need it, and so that works really great. You can actually have it in your refrigerator for up to a week or so. Now, the longer you leave it in there, it is going to take on a little bit of a fermented flavor, and so you want to know that. If you don't care for that flavor, you don't want to leave it in there as long. I like to use it within a day or so of making it up. A lot of times I'll just make it up that morning and then let it rise, maybe put it in the fridge until I'm ready to use it that night. Today I'm just making it up this afternoon. I'm going to let it rise for 2 hours, and then I'm going to go ahead and use it. For me, it makes up about 4 pizzas. I actually did this for my daughter's birthday, and each of her friends got to make their own little individual pizza, and I think it made about 12 or so of those. So that's a great option if you're having people over and you want everybody to do their own individual pizza. That works really good. I'm going to show you the ingredients we're using today. I'm going to be using einkorn flour. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know that's my preferred flour of choice. It's a heritage wheat, and it's just easier to digest. It's grown in Italy, so it doesn't get a lot of the drift of like the glyphosate and stuff like some of the other wheats do. And it's organic. And then we're going to be using an extra virgin olive oil here. We're going to be using yeast, salt, sugar, and water. So I'm going to be using this active dry yeast today. If you can also use the rapid rise yeast, you won't need to mix this in with the water and let it sit. You can just mix it all together and use it like that. I'm just used to using this active dry yeast. That's what I normally use, and so I'm going to use it. Also, another option is that you can do this with sourdough. So if you wanted to do sourdough, you could just replace the yeast with about 3/4 of a cup of kind of a sourdough starter that you fed within the last day or two, and that works really well also. Now, you do need to know that if you're using sourdough, you would want to let the rise time go longer. So instead of letting it rise 2 hours, you would want to go ahead and let that rise like say 8 or 12 hours, and then put it in the fridge or use it or whatever. So it works really well, you know, if you wanted to do that in the morning, let it rise throughout the day, and then use it that afternoon. That works really good. So you can do that. So in the description below, I'm going to have the recipe for this. Einkorn is a little bit different in the way that it absorbs moisture. So there's going to be a separate recipe if you're using einkorn, or if you're using just like white flour. So if I don't use einkorn, I usually use maybe like an organic all-purpose flour, and that works really well also. And so I'm just going to get this mixed up and show you how I do it. All right, so I'm just going to get started by adding in my water and my yeast and my sugar. It's about 2.5 cups of water, 2 packets of yeast, and a tablespoon of sugar. So if you're using the bulk yeast, this is 1.5 tablespoons of yeast. And I'm just going to let that set for a couple minutes just to kind of dissolve in there. It just helps everything get going quicker and helps the dough rise quicker. So then I'll start adding my flour. I'm going to start with 6 cups of flour and see how that does. If I need to add more, I will. At this point, you would also want to add in your salt, but I forgot to do that and had to work it in later. So, you know, real life, things like that happen. And so I'm just mixing my dough, and you just kind of want it to be a cohesive ball here. You don't want it to be too super thick or anything, but you also don't want it too sticky. So it will be a little bit sticky, and that's fine. But you can just see how it's all coming together here in a ball, and that's what I want. All right, so now I'm going to add in my 1/4 cup of olive oil, and I like to do this last and just kind of mix it in a little bit, and it's not going to mix all the way in. It's going to have a coating on the outside of your dough, and I just find that this works really well, especially for einkorn. And so I'm just mixing in there a little bit, and then I will let this dough rise for 2 hours, and then it'll be ready to use. I am going to be using a beeswax wrap cover today. You can also use plastic wrap, but I got this off Amazon. You can cut it to your desired size, and I find that it works really well, especially if I'm just leaving something for a couple hours like this. All right, so it's been 2 hours and our dough has gotten all risen. You can see here it's got lots of air bubbles and stuff, and it's kind of starting to deflate a little bit. So now you can go ahead and get ready to make your pizzas, or if you're not wanting to make pizzas right now, you can put this in the fridge and it'll keep for up to a week or so, and you can pull it out and use it as needed. So if I'm going to be putting mine in the fridge, I like to use a container like this. With it being square like this, it fits in the fridge a lot better and doesn't take up so much room like a bowl like this would, and it's got a nice lid on it, so I'll just put it in there and stick it in the fridge and then pull it out when I need it. You can get these type containers at like restaurant supply stores, or you can find them online and stuff. So what I'm going to do today is, like I said, this makes about 4 pizzas. So I'm going to make 3 regular pizzas, and then I'm going to make a dessert pizza. And but if you're not wanting to make all 4 pizzas right now, you could definitely just make 1 or 2 and then put the rest in the fridge and then pull it out as you need it. This recipe also makes like great breadsticks. So if you're making like soup or something the next day and you want to make some breadsticks, you could just pull it out and you could press out your dough and add some olive oil, some herbs and spices, and then maybe put some cheese and stuff on it, make it into some breadsticks. So it's very versatile and you can do a lot of different things with it. So how I like to cook my pizzas are, I like to take these pizza stones. I've had these for a while. You can see they're nice and brown. And I'm going to go ahead and get my oven preheated, and I'm going to stick these in there as my oven is preheating. They're going to get super hot. And while that is, I've got 2 ovens, so I'm going to be using both of them at the same time. That way it'll go quicker. So I'm going to put both of my pizza stones in my oven, get those going really hot. And while those are heating up in there, I'm gonna take some parchment paper and I'm gonna kind of make it just a little bit bigger than my stones are, and I'm gonna put out 4 of those on my counter, and then I'm gonna start making my pizzas. I just kind of eyeball it the size I think my stone is, and I'll just make them on my parchment paper, and then I can take my parchment paper and my pizza. It's gonna have a little bit kind of like a handle on either side that I can just transfer to my pizza stone. I'll pull it out of the oven while it's hot. I'll transfer it to that stone. It'll just start cooking right away because that pizza stone is going to be really hot. So if you don't have pizza stones, or you don't want to use that method because it is hot and it can be a little bit dangerous, especially if you're cooking with young kids, you can take something like just any type of pan like this, a cookie sheet, 9x13 pan, anything like that. And you could even just smear some oil in the bottom here if you wanted to, and then press your pizza dough out on it, top it with your sauce, your cheese, and then stick it in the oven and cook it that way. It's just going to cook a little bit longer because you're not putting it right on that hot stone. So you got lots of options here to make it easier if you want to do that, or like I said, if you don't have a pizza stone. And I also like to use if I'm doing parchment, I like to put a little bit of cornmeal on the bottom of my parchment paper and then press my dough out on that. So this dough is at like room temp, and it's just easy to just kind of press it out on your pan right now. If you've had it in the fridge, you might want to pull it out and put flour on it and roll it out. It's just going to kind of depend on the texture of your dough. If it's been in the fridge for like several days, it might start getting a little bit loose, and you kind of might want to add some extra flour on top of that as you're rolling it out, but you're just kind of have to work with it and see how it goes. So this is the dessert pizza we're going to be making. It's a raspberry cheesecake dessert pizza, and I'm going to link the website for that below. She has where you make the crust itself, but obviously we already have our crust made, so we're just going to be putting the sauce and the streusel topping. And this is an amazing pizza. It's so good. Like if you're having guests or something over and you want to do this, it's a great option to have. So really recommend this. We really enjoy this pizza, and I'm fixing to get started assembling my pizzas, and I'm going to show you how I do that. So I'm just going to get started by grating up my cheese. I've got 2 8-ounce blocks of mozzarella cheese here that I'm going to grate, and that's going to work well for these 3 pizzas. It's just enough cheese for them. We usually like to use Parmesan and feta as well, but I found out my feta wasn't good anymore, so I had to throw that out. But we just like to buy it in the big blocks and then just kind of break it up and put it on the top of our pizza. I love to buy my cheese in blocks like this mozzarella is, and also my Parmesan. It tastes so much better. It melts so much better. It's cheaper. That bagged stuff, they put I think it's like cellulose or something in, and it just doesn't melt as good, and it's not as good. And so here is the Parmesan. I've got my microplane here, and I'm just going to grate that up. It's going to be grated up real fine, and I'm going to put it on top of my mozzarella cheese when I get ready to put my cheeses on my pizza. So this is the pizza sauce I'm going to be using for my pizzas. I'm also going to put pepperoni and bacon bits on them. I've got that bacon bits that's real bacon and it's just already cooked and in bits for you, and so that works really well. I'm going to go ahead and get my parchment paper out, and then I'm just going to kind of divide this dough into fourths as best I can. I'm going to put a little bit of cornmeal on the bottom of my parchment. I'm going to divide my dough up into fourths, put one on each paper, and then I'm going to get some flour and put on top because it was a little bit sticky, but that's okay. It actually makes the pizza taste really good when it's a little bit sticky like that. And then I just like to press it out with my hands. You can also get a rolling pin and roll it out if you want, but I just find it works really well to just kind of press it out like this. And so that's usually what I do, and I'm just going to kind of guess and make it about the size of my pizza stone. And these are I'm just kind of making them really thin, and so it works out to being a great size. So I love being able to just go ahead and make up all four of these pizzas at one time. I've got 3 teenagers and 1 preteen, and so they eat quite a bit, but also they love pizza for leftovers. They will fight over who gets the pizza in the morning for breakfast because they love to eat it cold out of the refrigerator for breakfast. Sometimes they will hide it from each other and put their name on it just so that they get the pizza for breakfast. So it works out really well, and we get 2 meals out of it, or at least some of us do. So I'm just going to spread my sauce on there. We like quite a bit of sauce, and so I'm going to spread that out on each of these 3 pizzas. When you have them all like this, you can kind of do it assembly line style, and then if you've got family members that like to help, it's something really fun to get in there and do together, or having like a pizza party and having friends over is really fun to do that. Everybody can kind of put their own toppings and stuff on the pizza like they like to. I know my daughter's party went really well, and the girls really seemed to all like making their own pizzas, and then I was able to put 2 or 3 in the oven at a time since they were kind of small, and so that worked out good, and they cooked really quickly. Now, grilling pizzas is really good too if you've ever done that before. You could put these on the grill and cook them up, and that tastes so good. That's definitely an option that you can do with these. It just gives it a whole different flavor, and we've done that several times and we really like it. So when you're putting your pepperoni on there, just be mindful that it will shrink up a little bit. So you can put a little extra on there and kind of squeeze it in if you want to. And I like to put this bacon on there just kind of like sprinkles. And if I was going to be using feta cheese, I would go ahead and put it on right there at the end. So my stones have gotten really hot. I'm getting them out of the oven. And then I'm just going to transfer those pizzas on there and stick them back in the oven. I switched over to some oven mitts to help because it's really hot, and it just helps to get them in there a little bit easier. So now we're going to get started with our dessert pizza. I've got my cream cheese. It's been sitting out for a couple hours, so it's really soft. If it's not soft, you might want to warm it up just a little bit, or you could just mix this up with a mixer or something. I didn't want to get my mixer out, so I'm just doing it by hand, and it was fine because it was pretty soft. And so I'm just going to go ahead and spread it on top of that pizza dough, and then we will put our jam on top of that. I've let my jam set out too. It was in the fridge because it was already open, and so I let it set out for about an hour or so that it would be easy to spread as well. So it's just going to go straight on top of that cream cheese mixture, and we're just going to swirl it on top of there. So having this raspberry jam in there just makes this be such a pretty dessert. Once I get that all spread on there, I'm going to sprinkle some white chocolate chips, and then I'm going to make our streusel topping. So the streusel topping is just going to be some melted butter with a little bit of vanilla in it. Then I'm going to mix some flour and some brown sugar and some white sugar together. And then I'm going to pour that butter in there and mix it up. And it makes almost kind of like a wet cookie dough sort of thing. And so then you're just going to drop it in little pieces on top of your pizza dough. And it's going to kind of cook together and melt together as it cooks. And it just makes it so good and delicious. So we got that finished while our other pizzas were baking, and now they're coming out of the oven, and they look super great. They're nice and browned on top and on the bottom, and they're going to be ready to eat in just a few minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and transfer the pizzas over to a metal pizza pan I have, and then this cutting board here. That way I can go ahead and reuse the stones for my next pizzas, and obviously they're still clean since they just have had the parchment paper and stuff on them, but this works really well because they're still hot, and then I can just put my other pizzas on them and stick those in the oven, and it makes it go really quick. So these last pizzas are going in the oven, and I cook my pizzas on 450 for about 10 to 12 minutes on those stones. If you're going to use like a cookie sheet or something that's not heated up, it's probably going to take more like 15 minutes to 17 minutes, something like that. I know some people like to crank their ovens up like super hot like it would for a pizza oven. You can do that, and it probably wouldn't take as long, but I find that 450 works really good for me. And so we're just going to slice that pizza up, and we're going to be ready to eat here in just a few minutes. So you can see on this pizza how it's gotten nice and browned up on the bottom of it, and it's just going to make it be really nice and crispy for when you eat it. And now our dessert pizza is coming out of the oven, and look how amazing that looks. It's got that nice cream cheese mixture that's kind of puffed up, and then your streusel is kind of melted on the top, and you've got your jam coming out from underneath that, and then you can see that the white chocolate chips have gotten toasted just a little bit. So it is so amazing. You want to let that cool down a little bit and eat it just when it's warm, and it is incredible. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you try these recipes, and I hope you're having a great day. Thank you so much for watching.